You are witnessing OBE destroying the very foundation of our society. You are watching as your children are being prepared to live and function in the sustainable society outlined in the HUD report. The real purpose of all of these exercises is to break down parental authority and societal structures and make the children's minds pliable for restructuring. An assault on attitudes, values, and beliefs. This is OBE at work. The elimination of America's natural competitive nature is key to the agenda of the social planners. That's why they are busy eliminating any competition in school programs, be it classroom grades or basketball. We're told that a child's self-esteem is damaged if he is forced to compete and lose. So they eliminate losers. In many schools, all children now make the cheerleading squad, even if they have no athletic ability. All children make the band, whether they can play an instrument or not. But perhaps the most bizarre example of the destruction of competition in schools has been developed in Cecil County, Maryland. Here, middle school basketball is being played by very different rules. If one team is 10 points ahead, additional baskets scored by the winning team won't count until the underdog team catches up. No record is kept of who scores, so no one can stand out as a star of the team. So now you have today's modern high school athletic event. A band plays sour notes in a non-victory celebration as cheerleaders with no ability have nothing to cheer about as a boring, pointless game which has no winners and no losers drags out on the floor. Hours later, the agony ends. What's the point? This is OBE, behavior modification, at work. And you know, the really horrible part is that kids know when they have no ability to undertake something. Even without the use of scores or grades or standards, they know whether they performed well or not. They know the whole process is a scam. That knowledge does nothing to fake them into a false self-esteem. And such is the true tragedy of education restructuring. Remember that fact the next time your child breaks into an unprovoked rage or commits a senseless act of violence or threatens suicide, because that too is OBE at work. So you see, OBE has nothing to do with academics. And it's not just a simple program or teaching method. If your school accepts public money, particularly from the federal government, then your school uses OBE, behavior modification methods. It is everywhere in the curriculum. It's in the textbooks, it's in class projects, class discussions, and even in extracurricular activities. Outcome-based education is like carbon monoxide. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but it is a deadly killer of minds. Now why? This is a question education activists always ask me. Why would the education establishment seek to create such students? The answer is simple. They advocate a political agenda that promotes the imposition of a radical restructuring of American society, the vision of Dave Foreman and the Wildlands Project, and they need properly indoctrinated citizens to populate it because they're the only ones who would. The social planners aren't lying to you. Your children really are being prepared for the future, but it's a future in a global village of misery and sacrifice. And so to escape it, and to save your children, to assure that they keep their values intact, where do you seek refuge? In your church? And if you do, you're going to fall right into another trap. Beginning in 1993, more than 100 million Americans in 67,000 congregations became the target of a radical leftist environmental propaganda campaign fueled by over $5 million in grants from private foundations. Their goal is to break down the strongest resistance to an environmental movement that advocates earth worship and the idea that man is only equal to rocks, plants, and animals. You see, one of the last bastions of resistance to the restructuring of America is found in the Christian church. All of Western civilization is rooted in Christian teachings. If you want to change those values, you have to assure that the respected and trusted institutions are preaching the proper message. The driving force in the assault on Christian churches is called the National Religious Partnership for the Environment. Its stated purpose is to, quote, underscore the connection between addressing issues of poverty and the environment. The partnership is a formal agreement among the nation's largest religious organizations, including U.S. Catholic Conference, National Council of Churches, Coalition on the Environment and Jewish Life, and the Evangelical Environmental Network. Funding comes from, among others, Pew Charitable Trust, Stephen C. Rockefeller, the Turner Foundation, W. Alton Jones Foundation, and the New World Foundation. The partnership's executive director, Paul Gorman, said, quote, how people of faith engage the environmental crisis will have much to do with the future well-being of the planet and in all likelihood with the future of religious life as well. But rather than promoting some kind of Christian answer to environmental questions, in truth, many of those involved with the partnership are unabashed, earth-worshipping pagans who promote a religion called Gaia. In fact, careful study of the policies and teachings of those involved with the partnership reveal that they openly advocate and promote the same transformation of America and global social order as outlined in the Wildlands Project. They promote a social order for a global society organized around the notion that the earth itself is the giver of life and that all of the world's religions are evolving into a state of enlightenment that recognizes Gaia as the true source of life and spirituality and therefore is the only relevant object of worship. The earth is the only relevant object of worship. The purpose of the partnership is to assure such a transformation takes place in all of the churches of the nation. The partnership operates out of that Anglican church in New York called St. John the Divine. The cathedral is also the home of the Gaia Institute and the Temple of Understanding. The temple is an official UN NGO, non-government organization, making it a direct partner in the UN's global agenda. Among the directors of the temple is the Reverend Thomas Berry. In his book, Dream of the Earth, Berry never uses the word God, but speaks of a supernatural force in the universe. He says that we should place less emphasis on Christ as a person and a redeemer. He tells Christians that they should put away the Bible for 20 years while we radically rethink our religious ideas. That is a quote. Father Berry contends that Christianity promotes, quote, deep cultural pathology of human greed and addiction. He advocates that the earth is disintegrating and that Christianity is mostly to blame. Father Berry believes that we are now entering an era of earth consciousness, and he heralds a new era he calls the Ecozoic age that will transcend God. Father Berry suggests that we will have to remove the idea that only humans are created in the likeness of God. Father Berry says that, quote, the world is being called to a new post-denominational, even post-Christian belief system that sees the earth as a living being, mythologically as Gaia, the mother, with mankind as her consciousness. Not so coincidentally, also part of the Temple of Understanding is Maurice Strong, Secretary General of the 1993 UN Earth Summit and now the number 2 man in the United Nations, and the man I predict will be the next Secretary General of the United Nations. Strong has said, quote, isn't the only hope for the planet that the industrialized civilizations collapse? Isn't it our responsibility to bring that about? Strong has owned a ranch in Colorado called Baco Grande, where he built a Babylonian sun god temple. The ranch became a hotbed for a variety of New Age religious activities. Not surprising, those who worship at the Temple of Understanding also follow the teachings of Peter Singer, the father of the animal rights movement. Singer once wrote, quote, Christianity is our foe. If animal rights is to succeed, we must destroy the Judeo-Christian religious tradition. Now these same people have launched a massive campaign to form an environmental partnership with Christians, with your church. Can there be any doubt as to their motivations or their goals? Western civilization, with its foundation in Christianity, is their target. Destroy Christianity and our whole way of life, our laws, our relationships with one another, our humanity will change. And that change is necessary for the full transformation of our society as outlined in the Wildlands Project, if that's to be accomplished. Perhaps you think Christianity is too big, too strong, to fall for the ravings of green zealots. Then you underestimate them. The partnership is highly organized. Its education and action kits are prepared for each faith and each denomination. They write sermons in the language of your church and your Sunday school. Sermons and Sunday school materials are written to fit each individual church, denomination, or orthodoxy. Religious leaders from churches across the country are brought into training seminars. Summit meetings for black and Orthodox Christians are organized. Environmental curriculum for Jewish seminaries are prepared. No stone has been left unturned in the partnership's drive to force its ideology into all aspects of Christian thought. And daily, the invasion grows stronger. Item, October 20th, 1998, in New York City. A forum of religious scholars, scientists, and environmentalists announced a project to, quote, put the force of human religions from Judaism to Islam to Hinduism behind the ecological concerns. Item, October 21st, 1998, New York City. The Harvard Project on Religion and Ecology, which involves more than 1,000 scholars, clerics, and activists worldwide, said, quote, the world's major religions must do far more to provide the moral force behind environmental preservation, such as persuading people to make sacrifices. Could that be the Global Warming Treaty? Item, October 25th, 1998, Columbus, Ohio. More than 119 members of Protestant, Orthodox, Christian, Roman Catholic, Evangelical, Christian, and Jewish congregations met to help launch a 9-state campaign to spread the message that human pollution risks destroying God's earth through global warming. Item, October 1998, Portland, Oregon, my favorite. 4 Buddhist monks ventured into a tunnel 260 feet underground, burning incense and chanting to make peace with the spirits they say are angered by the building of a new commuter rail line. They went in to apologize to the earth. The ceremony was partly organized by city transportation officials. Now, why is that important? Let me tell you why that's important. If they're able to put this entire agenda together, the day will come when any time you want to build anything on your property, you will have to go down to the designated priest and get his blessing before you're able to do that. That's why that's important. Even if it sounds funny, that's why that's important. You think that's wacko and bizarre to say. What about all the rest of this nutty stuff I've said? Item, November 1998. Article in a Jewish publication discussing environmental education of 6th graders through the Jewish religion says, quote, the ecological crisis should be addressed through religion because it is mainly a crisis of values. I thought it was about science. The environmental agenda is about values. Item, November 1998, New York State. A Mormon radio program teaches Bible verses to reinforce the environmental message. The message is identical to information supplied in packets by the National Religious Partnership for the Environment. Item, a Sunday school curriculum created by a Colorado organization called Group contains an exercise for 8th graders that encourages the children to hug a tree and then describe how it felt. The group lesson utilizes OBE, behavior modification tactics. The lesson explains that children, quote, need lots of encouragement and affirmation to develop and stick to an environmental conscientious lifestyle. And when we started digging into Group, you would be astonished how many churches across the country use Group. This is the Sunday school lesson, and it is openly sold in Christian bookstores across the country. In most cases, they have big banners and sales going on of this. This is taking over Sunday school curriculum across the country. So now, after hearing all this, you understand the enemy you face and his agenda. Now you know how the radical restructuring movement plans to turn the world's greatest industrial giant into an agrarian global village, one step at a time, and time is growing short.